And the way we like to start these, first of all, everybody, thanks very much for coming. This is going to be the pandemic from the perspective of the Hanged Man, which is all about changing our perspective. So we like to start with everybody just saying their name and where they're calling from, and then maybe some word that you think of when you think of the Hangman. So Patti, go ahead.
Hi. That's right. That's me. Hi, I'm Patti Ashley. I'm from here. I live in Longmont. Hangman is waiting for me. Yeah. So, yeah.
So why don't you go ahead? You want to go ahead and order on your screen and ask and call on people?
Yeah, it helps me because my brain needs that. So on my right is Becky. So Becky, hi.
Hi, I'm Becky Cleveland from North Carolina. And when I think of Hangman, and right now I'm thinking I have a big transformation I'm going through. So it's exciting and scary. So that's what I think of.
Okay, welcome. Andrew?
I really like the mantis that someone sent. So my word is mantis, like praying mantis. And I think in Greek there's an interesting word called iatromantis, which means something like healer, seer, or something. So that's my word.
Wow.
Okay, and you're from Boulder, right?
I'm from Boulder.
Boulder.
And Andrew's referring to what someone posted on the Facebook event page. So if you guys want to go to the Facebook event page, you can see the little praying mantis that someone showed us their version of the Hangman. That was great. Thank you.
So Olga?
I'm think of the word helpless.
But you're Olga, and you're calling from where?
I'm calling from Denver.
So helpless is your word.
Helpless is what I think of.
Okay, welcome. Catherine?
Hi, Catherine Woods, Fort Collins, Colorado. Surrender.
Great word.
Yeah. Mark?
So good to see you all. Mark from Boulder. Hard to land on one word. Submission.
Okay.
No, that's good.
Tom?
I'm Tom from South Boulder, and the word I can think of is suspension. I'm sorry, no. Sorry, I had the word and got distracted. I guess suspension is good.
Suspension. Okay. That's what came out. That's what wanted to come out.
And Lee, you're in a separate room today. You're in the same place in South Boulder, only in a different room. You're on mute.
Yeah.
Unmute.
Okay, here I am.
Yay.
Yeah, Lee, also South Boulder. I'm reminded of Prometheus, who got chained to a rock, suspended, who made a willing sacrifice to give fire to mankind. So, willing sacrifice for the benefit of others.
Wow.
Great, thanks. Elizabeth?
Hi, I'm Elizabeth. I used to be from Denver and Boulder, and now I'm in Herndon, Virginia, near DC. And I'm thinking more in terms of time out. You know, it's a time to take a breather for those of us who've been running like crazy, sort of like forced time out.
That's a good one. Thank you. Yeah, that's certainly what's been coming to me during all this time.
And the person next to you, it says Mark on my screen, but I'm guessing your name isn't Mark.
Denise. It's Denise.
Denise.
Denise, yeah, for some reason you're labeled as Mark. I'll unmute you. There.
I don't know why I'm labeled as Mark, except Mark, my husband, was probably the last person who used Zoom. So when I think of the Hangman, I think of change in perspective.
Excellent.
Okay. So it's Denise, right? Is that your name?
It's Denise, yes.
Okay. Thanks, Denise. Christine, you're muted too. To unmute.
Yeah. Hi. I had never, I'm Christine Ruth. I'm from Boulder. I had no idea what the Hanged Man was. I just signed up for it because I was like, what is that? You know, when I read Billie's description on the email, I was thinking about just, you know, all the death and resurrection metaphors in my life. I was thinking about Jonah, the whale, and getting caught in the belly of the whale for, you know, 3 days. And the metaphor of coming out with a new direction and new purpose. And, you know, that metaphor is rich in many, many religions. But anyway, I can't wait to hear about this. I have no idea what that is.
All right.
Hey, thanks, Christine. It's good to see you. Donna, yay.
Okay. The word that comes to me is paradox, or the fact that everything is only just a half truth.
Okay. And you're from Boulder as well. Almost everybody's local except for Elizabeth.
Yeah, I'm
and
from
Becky so far.
Denise, well, Becky's in North Carolina and Denise is in Washington, D.C. So
Right.
we have a lot of different versions. So.
All right. So let's see. We moved around here. Natalie, I think, is next.
Yeah, Natalie would be next.
Okay. Well, I'm from Longmont.
Yeah.
Boulder County.
And the word that the word I think about is uncertainty.
Uncertainty. Okay. And we already
Catherine?
heard.
Did we do Catherine?
Yeah, we already heard from Catherine. So we're going to move over
How
to.
did she get down there?
It happens. People drop off and come back on. You have to go with it, you know. So now we want to hear from Lindsay.
All right. So then Lindsay, is that your name?
Yes, it is.
Hi, Lindsay.
I'm from Longmont, and the hangman to me means seeing things from a new angle and trying to work with what you have, even if it's tough.
Okay. Okay. And then Norma.
Hi, I'm Norma Portnoy. I live in Lafayette, and I'm like Christine. I really don't know anything about Hangman or anything. I'm here to learn and listen.
I love
So,
it.
hi.
I love it.
All right.
Well, welcome, everybody. I'm so glad you're here. And Billie, thanks so much for doing this. I just so happy to be able to participate. Billie's, I always call her the queen of metaphor. So yeah, this is just great to have these conversations during this time.
Yeah, so thank you all. Thank you all. I'm so glad you're here. And yes, those who are new to this work, I hope this helps you understand a little bit more about the Hangman. I'm actually going to try to do a screen share here, so we can see some.
Do you want to? Are we going to do the bowl first?
Oh no, sorry, that's right. I'm just going so fast. I'm just like,
so many books, so many Hangmen.
You know? That's why I had such trouble in school, because I was like right ahead.
I think Andrew's over there poised with the flute.
Yeah.
I think
I'm so sorry, Andrew. You're right. Andrew's going to do a little flute, and then Patty's going to lead us in a meditation to start. So,
Okay,
Andrew,
so give me the 5-second warning if you want.
I will. Go ahead. Very good. Thank you.
Okay, so let's just, if you're comfortable, close your eyes and take a deep breath. Come into the space of us being in this experience today. With gratitude, just focus on your breath, in and out. Feel your body in the space of calm, curious connection. And just listen for a minute as I read to you what the hanged man might say if he or she could speak. I crossed through pain to discover the strength of sacrifice. Little by little, I undo everything in me that could be called me. I re-enter myself insistently as if into an enchanted forest. I own nothing. I grasped nothing. I know nothing. I want nothing. I can do nothing. However, the entire universe crosses through me, arriving to fill me with its whirlwinds before leaving again. I am the infinite sky that lets the clouds pass by. What remains of me? A single gaze staring at nothing, aware of itself, which makes itself the last and ultimate reality. Then I explode into pure light. The I becomes the axis of a total dance. The holy water where the thirsty come to drink. So just take that into our group here today as we continue to move with the archetype of the hanged man. Come back into the room and join us.
That was wonderful, Patti. And I'm wondering if you can email that to me.
I can. It's this book that I love. Billie
Okay.
can say the guy's name. I can't.
The poem expressed exactly what I'm going through now.
Alejandro Jodorowsky.
So I love, because there's a whole lot more too, but I love when he does that. It really makes it more, brings the archetype in for me a little bit.
Yeah.
I think of it that way, personifying it.
Mm-hmm.
So
now I'm going to try the screen share. Thank you for slowing me down. I was like, what are you? Okay, let's try this and see what happens here. Okay, so what I did was I made a PDF which I can send to all of you afterwards. Let's see, I'm going to have to pull up the actual PDF here, but it comes from this book, which I've been using for these discussions. It's the Turo and the Journey of the Hero, and it's really well put together, and it gives us a clearer for me, it gives me a clear understanding of what the depths of the cards, because it's so complex. You could spend the rest of your life talking about the tarot and learning about it. It's really phenomenal. I think of it as a map to the unconscious. I think of it as a guidelines to the archetypes. So if we get deeper and deeper into the images of the tarot, we can really help to understand archetypes better. Okay, so let's give this a go here. We're going to share the screen. Hope this works. There we go. Okay, share. Okay, so this is the PDF that you will get after the call. And it showed a lot of the images in here. I wanted it to be clearer, being able to see it rather than me holding it up like a page. This way everybody can see. So this is the classic hangman image that many of us have seen over time. This was prepared, the deck is called Rider Waite. And there's an interesting distinction later that you'll see. He's hung by his right foot, which the man who wrote this book, Turo and the Journey of the Hero, he talks about how when it's depicted by the right foot, it's more of a conscious choice that we're entering into this space of the hangman. So then, and I won't read all this, of course, but he calls it the hangman is the great crisis. It's that place where we hit the crisis and we realize something really has to change. So, in fact, when 12 shows up in people's dreams, I often think of the hangman. So this is a wonderful example too of how he relates the cards, because when we flip the hangman into a standing position, he's in the same position as the woman who appears in the last card of the major arcana, the world. So the promise is that by being stuck at the number 12, we eventually evolve to the number 21. So even the numbers switch around, 1, 2, and then 2, 1. So if you can see how their legs are in a similar position. So the promise is that eventually there will be liberation. So
yeah, I was so happy when you said that, because I think we all need a little bit of hope right now, right?
Exactly.
Well, you know, one of the things that strikes me, I mean, I didn't say it when, you know, we went around and talked, but it wasn't until I was sitting still for a minute. And for me, I think, and it's reinforced when I see the photo, when I think of the hanged man, I think of chrysalis. And yes, when the chrysalis happens, the larvae inside completely dissolves and recongeals, reconstellates. And, you know, everything comes to a screeching halt while that's happening as everything reassembles. And so I just wanted to say that.
Sure.
And the thing about that too is if you open it too soon, the butterfly won't emerge because it needs that time. So I love that image myself. It's very much like the hangman to me. And they're usually hanging too from trees. But the whole idea that you can't open it too soon, you know, I think we live in this world where we want everything fast. And there's just something about the waiting, which I think the hangman right now in this time when we're all in is just so relevant. And I think the chrysalis is such a great example of that as well.
It's a form of gestation.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
You know, it takes as long as it takes to cook a new life. Yeah. And if we push it too soon, it's undeveloped.
Yeah. And we don't know. I mean, that's the thing. And when I work with that image a lot with people who are like anxious to know when am I going to get there? And it's all different. You know, there's so many different types of caterpillars and different time frames. So we don't know. And that's the big thing right now, right? Is like, we don't know. Everybody wants to know, when are we going to go back? What's it going to be like?
Yeah. So there's just a couple more things I wanted to share here on the screen share, and then I can go back to full screen. But here's an example of the original Turo deck of the Turo of Marseille. It shows the hangman with his left leg being roped up, and then now we've changed it more to I'm more consciously entering this state. So that's a very important distinction, because the left always representing the unconscious and the right more.
Yeah. And that's the deck that this guy writes about. And I think that's interesting. Billie, wait a second. Can we go back to that?
I'll go back.
Because I think that left and right leg, it's so interesting, because I think these are the two most original Turo decks, right? The first one, and then the Rider-Waite.
Yes.
And they're saying that the Marseille, am I saying it right, was probably the first one. So you're saying that's left and this one's right.
Mm-hmm. That was what Rider-Waite's change was with the traditional one that we're so familiar with now. That was the big change, was he put it as the right leg rather than the left. So in other words, to invite us to consciously enter this and not let it be strung up, because otherwise we just unconsciously we're going to walk into it and somebody's gonna string us up, quite literally.
Yeah, that's very interesting.
That's an important distinction. And then here, we'll keep going here. The thing that surprised me that I didn't really know about when I was doing the research for this group was that it's so connected to rooting. That this particular image of the hangman, as you can see on what he's hanging from, the T-bar cross there, it's growing vines. And then he relates that to the Empress, which is the earth goddess in the Turo. So it's all about rooting. So the idea of us, here he says, the Empress shows development and growth in outer abundance. The hangman symbolizes root formation and growth into the depths. So there's an opportunity to grow. And that's what this metaphor is, with the vines growing on the cross as he's hanging. So if we think of ourselves as rooting during this time, rather than wanting to go and wanting to move and get out, and that constant need for motion, take in the place of quiet, and as Denise mentioned, the gestation. So this is another very interesting thing about the images. If you take the World card, which is the last in the major arcana, and lay it and put it on top of the hangman, it comes out to the symbol of the Egyptian Ankh. So there's the Egyptian loop that is a symbol for life. So again, these two cards are connected in a way that I never would have known if I hadn't read this book and I didn't realize that distinction. So the last bit I want to share here is just his kind of summary of what and again, you'll all get this PDF at the end. So the keywords for the hangman are, the archetype is the test. The task is changing one's ways, insight, and willingness to make a sacrifice. And those are all things that we mentioned in the intro. The goal is growth into the depths. So a place that I would not have been able to get to if I had been still continually moving in emotion. So risk, letting oneself hang endlessly, turning in circles, like not really accepting and dealing with the state of the hangman. I'm going to just kind of spin around. So feeling in life is being hopelessly stuck on a treadmill or in the wrong place, life crises, getting in one's way, meaningless lack of activity, wearing down, exercise and humility, resting, one's patience. So I'll stop the share and I'll send all that to you all later so you can read it at your leisure, as they say. But I thought the images of how the cards connect was very fascinating, and it shows how all the archetypes are really linked to one another.
I thought it was interesting that they put the Ankh in, because a long time ago when I was working with the Ankh, it seemed that you had to successfully pass through the land of the living before you became immortal.
Wow. So Judy, you just joined us. We didn't get a chance to meet you before.
I know, I'm sorry. I lost track of time.
Oh, that's okay. Can you just say hi and where your name and where you're calling from and your word for the hangman? That's how we started.
Hi, I'm Judy. I'm from Boulder, and my words for the hangman are it's perfect for this time because we are in a period of gestation and reflection.
Yeah, very good. Excellent.
It is perfect, isn't it? It's like everything you were reading, it's so perfect. Thanks for doing that PDF, Billie, because that was so good to see the pictures like right there, so clear.
Yeah, it's easier than me. Like I said last time, I was just holding up pages and stuff. It's difficult to see.
Thanks for doing that.
Sure, no problem. So we also, did anyone bring an image that they wanted to share of the hangman that they particularly like or ran across? So Catherine, do you have something you want to share?
Yeah, this is Angelis Arian's book, the Turo Handbook.
I have that book, yeah. That's a.
And this is her hanged man.
Looks like from an Ankh, Billy, upside down.
Does.
Isn't that from the Aleister Crowley deck?
I don't remember what deck she uses, but I think that is the one that she uses, is Aleister Crowley.
Yeah.
What's the name of the book?
The Turo Handbook, Practical Applications of Ancient Visual Symbols by the wonderful but now passed on Angelis Arian.
Yes, she did a lot of work of a lot of different things.
Yeah, this is my Turo book that I go to the most.
Yeah, I have that book. It's a good book.
It is a good book. May I add one more thing?
Mm-hmm.
Tarot decks are fascinating to me. You showed the one where the left foot and then the right foot are the one.
Right.
I actually think that, the older deck with the left foot represents an earlier time when consciousness was not available for ordinary people.
Mm.
And and I'm bringing this in because for me, the issue is about growth and development and what we're able to know and act with as we move along evolutionarily, growthfully, developmentally, soulfully, spiritually. And I want to link that to what this moment in time, which I think has this opportunity for more to come into consciousness and work with the moment of having to go in and be hung, because it opens the door of something collectively which could emerge. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for that, Catherine, because that's been, for Patti and I, that was really the desire of what we wanted to connect a lot of people in these groups to bring that awareness of how am I developing individually, and how does that help to develop the collective. So thank you very much for that.
Catherine, I can't remember, was yours right or left leg? Your image.
It's your
right leg.
It was right.
Yeah.
Are most of them right, Billy?
Now most of them are the right leg.
I like my inner child deck.
Wait a minute. Mine is the left leg.
Is it? Oh, that's because Aleister Crowley did that. Yeah.
Yeah, because he's from an earlier time.
Yeah, exactly.
So my Jack and the Beanstalk out of my inner child deck, he's right. I'm so dyslexic. I'm like, was it right or is it left? Right. That's right.
Yeah.
And what's yours, Elizabeth? Is it left?
Turo is left.
It's left. Interesting.
Oh, really? Okay, good. So there are some artists out there that are paying attention to that distinction. That's good. Can you hold it a little closer, Elizabeth, so I can see it better? And from what deck is this?
The Cosmic Tarot by Norbert Lesche. I sometimes call it the sort of the Hollywood Tarot because all his court cards look like actors, like Sean Connery, Liz Taylor.
Right.
But it's pretty.
So Lee, did you have something you wanted to share?
Yes, I do. It won't surprise people who know me that my Tarot book is called the Mythic Tarot, and it's a really old Tarot book that connects it to the Greek myths. And this is the picture of, I hope you can see it, of Prometheus chained to the rock.
Oh, really? Are
Can you see it?
Yeah. Yes. We can see it.
And that's left.
And that's left. And of course there's a lot of text here on Prometheus, but there was just one sentence that I thought I'd share that might be a little different and might relate. in this sentence, he talks about that this deck talks about the price of giving up our defenses and making the journey into loneliness and self-doubt that seems to be necessary for any real sense of what supports us when we cannot support ourselves. Wow. And that kind of rang true for me, because as we've given up our social networks, we've all given up so much of what supports us. And it's lonely. And to find out what our inner resources are that support us when we don't get to be a part of our networks feels like this point in the journey.
Wow.
Well, for me, it also sort of talks about, I mean, I thought about when Billie was talking about the book that she likes so much about the journey of the hero. But when I think about this, I think about the loneliness of what the journey is like as we're trying to move into individuation. I mean, it's a journey that you can only do alone. I mean, you can have teachers along the way, you can have guides along the way, you can have support along the way, but it's ultimately, it's a lonely journey.
Yeah. Yeah, very good. Thank you. So Mark, did you have something earlier that you wanted to share? You had your book up at some point, and I think we moved on to some. Go ahead.
You're muted. You're muted.
There you go.
I do. I was just going to comment on seeing Lindsay's sky above there and the branches. There was a pile there where the branches were above, and just evoking that notion of the hangman being in the branches. And mine just comes from a pagan deck. There's nothing real strikingly different. Still hung by the right leg.
Yeah.
The leaves are very heart-shaped, and that reminder of the way in which the blood is traveling down to the hanged figure's heart and head, I have to say. The weight deck really illuminates the head. I have the feeling that it's a real blending of heart and head being hung upside down. Yep. And just as far as the left and right, just feeling into that kind of modern science of left brain, right brain, bilateral work, and the way the right side of the body can sometimes be associated with the left brain, which is more analytical and more conscious. And the left side of the body can often be associated with the right side of the brain, which is more creative and sometimes associated with unconscious. And so just feeling that dynamic between the left and the right, and the possibility of some balance in these different representations of being hung by a left or right leg. But I appreciate the historical perspective that in an earlier time, this was really to go into the journey of initiation or the ordeal was a really, substantially unconscious journey or threshold that was crossed. Now, when we're not dragged into something like the coronavirus, there's a little more conscious choice in it. But
right. It's kind of like Jung used to say, though. He said, we don't go, I think Bly says this too, if we don't go down consciously, something's going to take us down. So collectively, we've all been put in this position against our will. I mean, we've all been said, oh, okay, wow, I guess we have to comply with staying home and staying away from people. That none of us anticipated this. So this certainly was, I would say in this version of what we're going through was the left leg. I mean, but I know what you're saying about the right hemisphere and the left hemisphere of the brain. And that gets very confusing because, but that's kind of like a very new thing that was learned in sort of recent history, that they found the cross, in the back of the base of the head. So there's archetypally, the left will remain the unconscious and the right will, I mean, that's my understanding.
I'm more with that.
It's one of those mixed up things of like, am I right brain or am I left brain? And is it
playing off of what Mark and Catherine were saying, I'd just like to add a thought, which is you have this right leg and this left leg, and you have this hanged man. In a way, it's like this sort of dawning possibility that for each of us as human beings, it's really impossible to step outside the prism of our own positionality without the help of others, the presence of love, some raise in consciousness. And I think one of the collective possibilities of this time, and even is just the idea that you know, the corpus callosum, a third possibility, where you know, we have Democrats, we have Republicans, we have up till this time we've had some real strong positions, but I think what's one thing that this idea of crossover and is the idea that when we come together, if we can let go of the black and white, that there is a possibility of new evolutions forward.
Yeah. Very good. Yes, thank you, Andrew. Yeah.
And we really almost can't do it without that. It's sort of funny that each of us feels very certain of our point of view to the point where it's almost impossible without some kind of loving intervention.
Yes, changes our perspective. So, Olga, you had something to say?
Yes, I was just thinking that the whole idea of the hangman, he's upside down. And as I was looking at all those different expressions of the card, the hangman, he's always upside down. And I'm wondering, well, when you're upside down, do you see the world upside down or do you see it right side up? And I think a lot of us feel like our worlds have been turned upside down. And I'm thinking, well, if you're in that position long enough, do you learn to see the world as, I don't know, right side up again, as the new normal, whatever that they're referring to? I was just thinking about this whole concept of upside down metaphor.
Yeah, very good.
Yeah,
Well,
love it.
I'd like to add something at that point, because I don't remember where I read it in one of the tarot books, and it talks about the position of the hangman is technically being baffled. So that position, you know, doing this to someone is to baffle someone, and you're kind of talking everything is upside down. As a collective, we are technically baffled. How do we reorganize ourselves in this position where nothing makes sense? You know, the oil market has negative prices for oil future. That's crazy. You know, everything is kind of tumbling down. So we have to reorganize in a new way. What is the new normal when we come out of this?
Well, the other thing that I would like to add to that is that I mean, I'm a person who spends a lot of time thinking about the body and how's the body involved with everything. And there's a lot of research that's come out of somatic psychotherapy now, where one of the big pushes is about calming down the vagus nerve for people that have been traumatized or people that have been highly stressed and things of that nature. And there's all these different ways to calm down the vagus nerve, a certain kind of breathing, certain kind of sense focusing. But the other thing that they talk about is if you can be upside down, that there's something about the inverted position that can be very soothing for the vagus nerve. And so I think about this time of being in upheaval and turned upside down. And I'm thinking, you know, well, maybe this is for the good of the collective, that somehow it's going to be soothing all of our vagus nerves. And we're going to come out of this sort of frenetic paradigm that we're in all over the world to a kind of more grounded. It's almost like sometimes when my computer gets weird, I just got to turn the damn thing off and give it a minute and turn it back on, and it reboots. And it's sort of like reorganizes itself. And so I think of the hangman as a kind of form of rebooting.
So here's a picture of the vagus nerve.
Yeah.
Kind of looks like the hangman, doesn't it? So
Which looks like the hangman. Yeah.
yeah, so it comes down from the brainstem and goes all the way into around our body. So yeah, I've been studying the vagus nerve a lot lately. That's really good. So what we should do next That's right. That's such a good point. Thank you. I agree. I do think our nervous systems are being rewired and rebooted, and we're in this suspension where we can't move, and we got to kind of feel somatically something that we didn't have to before because we were just busy like doing our thing, and now we're like, wait a minute. That's really, I totally relate to that. Thank you, Denise.
The minute she said vagus nerve, I thought, oh, Patti, she's going to say something about this.
It's called the Wanderer.
Me too. I thought the same thing.
They call the vagus nerve the Wanderer because it's so.
It affects everything in the body.
Cranial nerve, and it goes.
Yeah, it affects everything in the body.
It looks like Yggdrasil too. It looks like an image of Yggdrasil to me because of the mythic images I've seen of the world tree Yggdrasil. Oh, how interesting.
What is that word, Billie, that you're saying?
Yggdrasil, the mythic tree of the world.
Oh, okay. I didn't know that word. Thank you.
Don't ask me to spell it. It's impossible for me.
Starts with a Y.
Yeah,
And Odin hung himself in it.
Odin, that's another version of the willing sacrifice of being hung from Yggdrasil. That was, and I know Lee would be the best one to ask about this. Do you know more about the Odin myth? Doesn't he have to sacrifice an eye? Are you muted?
Here we go.
There you go.
Well, he's just another great example, and he hung on for the Nordics. The ash tree was the tree of life, and yes, he made the willing sacrifice to hang on it.
Right, until he learned, and then he learned the ruins, right? The language of the ruins.
Yes, which can be a basis for the Ogam.
The runes.
And in terms of poetry, again, the tree image, keeps coming up. In association with willing sacrifice world over with many gods. Because of that, I brought a very short poem to read.
Oh,
this is written, and it's current. Many of you, I'm sure, know the poet William Stafford. His son, Kim Stafford, now is the current poet laureate of Oregon, and he's writing very current shelter-in-place poems that are short, but teaching us how to root in nature at this point, and again, using the tree imagery with the hanging man. So could I read this really quickly?
Sure.
It's a little one. Please. Okay, it goes like this.
Slowly, not quickly.
Okay.
Right.
So here's Kim Stafford. Long before the pandemic, the trees knew how to guard one place with roots and shade. Moss found how to hug a stone for life. Wow. Every stream works out how to move in place, staying home, even as it flows generously outward, sending bounty far. Now is our time to practice, singing from balconies, sending words of comfort by any courier, kindling our lonesome generosity to shine in all directions like stars.
Whoa, beautiful. Just beautiful.
Beautiful. Lovely, thank you.
Thank you so much for sharing that.
Well, the other thing that strikes me is that when you see, the image of a tree, and it's a mirror image, is with the roots on top and the leaves in the bottom. And in the way we normally see trees, it's with the leaves on top. And so I'm just kind of struck about what everyone is saying about the hangman being hanged from a tree and the tree of life and the upside downness of everything. And that when I think about it, I think, sometimes it's a matter of switching perspectives in order to get, sometimes nourishment and nurturing comes from looking at things from a different angle.
That's right. That's right. Very, very good. That's it. It's all about perspective. Wait, oh, whoops.
So Lee has, I know there's so much more in you, Lee. Our last group, Billie was like, Lee knows about the hangman, and you were gone, and we're like, oh, perfect, because now you can tell us all about it today.
There's just one.
Oh, you're muted.
You're muted.
Yeah,
I just want to do a quick gender shift, because often books about mythology and comparative mythology, when we talk about the hangman, just bring up all of the masculine images.
Right.
I also want to remind us that probably the oldest myth of the goddess we have is Inanna. And critical to that is her descending to her sister in the underworld and getting hung. So we've got this ancient image of the hanged woman. And I'd like to throw that in the pot as well.
Yeah, excellent. Well, thank you for that, Lee. Because
yeah, and let's add her mother who was waiting on the surface. Yeah, I mean, that's a wonderful image. I love Carol Christ's Diving Deep and Surfacing book, and also Sylvia Pereira's book. They're fabulous books for looking at the feminine goddesses and the older things. Yeah. I agree. I concur about breaking old pattern and another perspective.
Well, this was the book I brought up last group that we did like this. This is my friends, Irene Clearman and Connie put this together. You probably remember this, Catherine.
Yes.
So this is their version of it's the hanged woman. So this actually does work.
Oh, so she has a woman.
And it says surrender. But isn't that great? It's in a bikini here. And then speaking of
what leg is she hung from?
Well, I don't think she's hung from, I don't know, either leg. It's kind of looks like she's dancing upside down.
Yeah. It looks more like the left, I think, if it were to be attached to something.
Maybe. She's got a high heel shoe on one of them. and then in the Osho Zen Turo deck that I use all the time with dreams, they don't even hang him. This is
hang him.
New Vision. They just basically go, okay, let's just get down to what it's all about. It's about new vision, and it's that metaphor of the rooting. So that's the paradoxical piece with this metaphor, is that I'm hung, but I'm still rooting at the same time. So that's part of the way that we grow from the hangman. But we have to realize that there are no paths that lead from the hangman. We cannot take the same paths that we've taken before. That's the biggest thing that I remember learning about this, is that in order to break free of the hangman, I have to forge a new path. I have to do something different, completely different than I've done before.
So I noticed earlier that Lindsay had a bunch of Tarot drawings. They were like black and white drawings behind you.
I do. I have some tapestries on my ceiling, and I have the sun on my wall over here.
Okay.
Yeah. And the lovers are over here.
Not one of the hangman, though.
Not of the hangman, no.
No. Where did you get those? Those are beautiful.
I actually got them off of Amazon for Christmas.
So you work with the Tarot? I don't really know you, Lindsay.
Yeah, I'm very interested in it. I haven't really gotten into it yet, but I've been reading the book, and I have the Rider-Waite deck. I've just always been interested in the art and the whole concept of Tarot.
Yeah, nice.
Those
images are beautiful.
Lindsay is Natalie's granddaughter.
Yeah.
So,
okay.
I her today. So
okay,
great.
Nice.
Yeah. So thank you. Yeah, it looks like you've got a great room there. Well,
thank you.
I was watching him earlier. I'm like, wow.
I know.
She does have a great room. It's very creative. She does.
Thank you.
She actually does a lot of painting and drawing and writing. She's very good at those things.
Thank you.
All right. So speaking of all the comments that we've had about gestation and everything, I have a quote that I was going to read, which is also in the PDF I'm going to send to all of you later. But this seems to be appropriate right now. The consciousness researcher Ken Wilber also describes the background of this crisis, of this midlife place where we go when we usually go into the hangman. It's in a very emphatic manner. We have identified ourselves with our body, mind, and personality, imagining these objects to constitute our real self. And we then spend our entire lives trying to defend, protect, and prolong what is just an illusion. But we also, but then back to the that was end quote there. But he also relates how valuable these crises are. So then quote, contrary to most professional opinion, this gnawing dissatisfaction with life is not a sign of mental illness, nor an indication of poor social adjustment, nor a character disorder. For concealed within this basic unhappiness with life and existence is the embryo of a growing intelligence, a special intelligence, usually buried under the immense weight of social shams. So then back to the author, suffering wants to help this special intelligence achieve a breakthrough, which is why people either avoid, scorn, or fail to become aware of it. But to the same extent, we should not glorify suffering, cling to it, or dramatize it, but should use it as the impetus for perception. I think that's great, because that's exactly what we're talking about, the new vision. How do I get that new vision? How do I get that new perspective?
Catherine?
Go ahead, Catherine.
I want to honor what the left represents from the sacred feminine, and also where in my universe, it's a place where I become, it's that ocean, it's that place between consciousness and unconsciousness, that because I've got a left, I can take my left hand and bring something into my awareness that I might not have been aware of at all. So it has a quality of liminal. It also has a quality of being open to the great pool of chaos and everything in the world. In order for something new to come in a way, it almost has to come from a place that we don't know yet. So that unconscious is useful in that we don't know. And then maybe if we go there, we can, and that's the same diving deep and surfacing. It's the same idea of going into a place of unknown. It opens me to having something speak through me that couldn't have done so before. Well, so the left is useful for that very reason.
Yes. Yes.
Well, and I like to think of it as it's what I talk about when I'm working with dreams. And in the Western world especially, we're so worshipful of the rational, analytical, and linear that we eschew the wisdom of the non-rational. And I think that it is oftentimes out of the non-rational that a new perspective can in fact emerge. I mean, when we look at most great pieces of art and literature, blah, 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 I mean, that is not coming from a place of rational, linear, analytical wisdom, which is valuable for those kinds of problems. But for other kinds of problems, we need, I think, the wisdom of the non-rational. Now, I'm not saying irrational. Right. I'm saying non-rational.
Right.
Because I think there's a difference.
Oh, definitely.
Yeah.
I hear in these several reflections that voice of Jeremy Taylor saying that the dream doesn't want us just to refry consciousness. It always wants to bring up new consciousness, bring up the unconscious for the sake of new consciousness. Or I heard an anecdote about Marie von Franz recently where I think it was her that said something like, the psyche doesn't waste a lot of spit on refried consciousness. It wants to bring new consciousness. So just feeling that that archetype of tending the dream in this space, in the figure of the hanged man. And we really need to bring something new. It can't just be
Well, if you try to
consciousness.
If you try to solve the same old problems with the same old tools, you get the same old problems.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah, and I think we needed to switch it up. I think our culture was going a little mad, actually. And so the idea of being turned upside down and hanging and suspended, having to stop, I think that's the only way we would have looked at things differently.
Definitely.
Yeah.
I don't think, I know. What I was going to say before too, and I forgot, was also we got to remember that the halo above his head reminds us of how sacred this space is. Reminds us of the ability for the higher consciousness. Yeah. That's such an important piece to think of it not so much as, oh God, I wish this hadn't happened, and oh man, how am I to get out of this? It's more like, oh, this is an opportunity, a sacred space, as we've been talking about growing. So paradoxically, growing while suspended.
Yeah, it's like the difference between a human being and a human doing. We've been doing in our analytical left brain world, and we tried so hard to fix everything that way, and we couldn't. So now we're suspended in this other world of being. What does it mean to be? I keep thinking about before all this happened and all the school shootings and all the mass shootings and stuff, and the increase in depression in kiddos and the suicide rate in kids. And I was really working a lot with that. And now with the hanged man and everything being turned upside down, of course there can't be school shootings because kids aren't going to school. I'm sure there'll be an increase in depression and suicide, but some of the kids are feeling better because they're not at school being bullied. So it's like there was so much going on that I don't think we were really addressing in our culture. And now we can't help but look in this suspended place. So I think that's interesting. I don't know how we're all going to go back to something. I'm not going to say normal because I don't think it was normal or will be normal or is normal, but
well, the other thing I think about, Billie, when you talk about the halo, and I think about the hanged man being upside down, and I think about how do I want to say this? For me, it's about, okay, let's turn the image upside, let's turn the person upside down so all the blood can rush to the brain so that the consciousness is now pointed down to be grounded in embodiment and the earth. That when we're standing upright, we have a tendency for our ideas to go out in the universe. But one of the quests of modern life is to be embodied and to be grounded in our essences. And because we place so much emphasis in our culture, I think pathologically so, to be out there, ideas, do, that there's something about this turning it upside down where we've actually got to ground ourselves in the ground.
This is not a time for the hero's journey, is what I hear in that. And the other thing with the hangman, I'm always thankful he's not being hung by his neck. Just like, thank God we're hanging by our feet, not a neck. I don't know, as bad as it is, Corona and the hanged man, thank God it's not the neck.
Yeah.
That's true.
Oh, well, speaking of the next, level of this, Patti and I were talking before we got on the call. The next version we want to do of this type of discussion is to talk about the tower. The tower is one of those, the tower is number 16, and it's described in this book as dramatic liberation. And so many of us know this image where the tower is burning and people are jumping from the tower. And when 9/11 happened, I was on a number of dreamers chat sites and email lists, and everyone talked about, are you noticing the symbolism of how the tower is being depicted in waking life? 2 towers burning people jumping off of the towers. It was phenomenally intense to deal with that in real life at that time, in the waking world, to see it unfold and dramatically. And as we know, things changed a lot since 9/11. So it feels to me as though we're at that kind of juncture again, where things all need to break down. The paradigms need to break down so that a new version of the paradigm can be built.
Well, and the thing that I had said earlier that I didn't say because I was muted was this idea of sort of a re-examination and a changing of consciousness of how we see the hero's journey. I think the hero's journey still happens, but I think as we move through time and space and as we evolve spiritually, culturally, whatever you want to say, I think our ideas of what is the hero's journey and the old idea of how it manifested might also be becoming turned on its head.
Yeah. Elizabeth, were you trying to say something before?
No, I was just coughing.
Oh, okay.
I still cough.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead,
I
Ken.
wanted to remind everyone that one of the old ways of characterizing a woman who was pregnant with possibility is that she was in a time of confinement.
That's true.
And actually, that's what's happened. I want to say a little bit. It'll take me a moment. This is an amazing time where many of us have not ever stood still and noticed, have not let ourselves be confined in a way that was embraceable, or that I'll just talk about me, where I embraced the confinement. In the last 13 years, I've had a lot of restrictions and confinement, and I've had a lot of opportunities to embrace breaking old patterns and birthing something different that I haven't considered before. And my sense is that if I welcome and embrace the time of confinement, then when the tower energy comes, and in my universe, it's on its way, it's in my dreams a lot. I'm an astrologer, I know what's going on astrologically that indicates that very, potentially very big, very disruptive things could be happening. But in this time of confinement, I have the opportunity to pull myself together so that whatever happens as there's developments, as the Turo is a developmental deck, as there are developments and there are things that are breaking down and sometimes through cataclysmic experiences, at least I will have had this time of confinement, of looking at things upside down, of pulling myself, of grounding, as I guess it was Natalie, I'm not familiar with everybody's names, but this is a big time of opportunity out of crisis, and that's the Chinese symbol. Crisis also equals opportunity in the Chinese way of looking, and I think we benefit from opening to perspectives that have us frame what's happening right now as a terrific opportunity for those of us who can step into it. There will always be people who can't, but I can. So I will move me.
Right. And that's all we can do. Yeah.
I'm curious if anybody wants to share personally how it's showing up for them in terms of all the adjectives and the way we've described the archetype. I know it's kind of a vague, we kind of all get it, but if there's something, a story or something that, really kind of strikes you as a hanged man experience, even though, like I said, we're all in it. So that's vague, but more specific.
Yeah. I'm just dealing with the collective piece of it mostly, just hanged in the sense that everything I had planned had to be canceled. And that was a whole, like, I had to take a big, deep breath because I had a lot of things on the calendar coming up. and everything changed in a couple of days. So it was, that felt shocking enough to feel like I had been strung up by my left leg, because I wasn't predicting.
Well, Christine and I are in the Hanged Man. Christine and I have a beautiful new office in Niwot, and Billie shares it too. And we just did our ribbon cutting. The ribbon's actually hanging outside the door still. We had our big party Friday, went to quarantine on Monday. So we're kind of turned upside down with our office and our work right now.
I'm turned upside down too. Can I?
Yeah, Donna.
Donna, please.
Okay. What happened is that in November I had a pacemaker implant, and I was in the midst of recovering from that when everything got shut down. But then just last Thursday, I had another emergency surgery and had to go to the hospital for 5 nights. You know, just exactly where you don't want to be during the coronavirus. There I was in the midst of the hospital setting. And although everything looked sterile, etc., there were masks and gloves and all of that, there is the possibility, much more so now, that I'm carrying the virus. And I won't know for another week or 2. And that kind of has me hanging upside down and thinking, wow, this might be the end of it for me. I'd better really think about my demise should that happen. And that's very sobering.
Did they do the test, Donna? Did they test you?
They didn't test me. I just have to wait 2 weeks. Yeah. And, you know, hopefully I'm okay. If I have the virus, then so does my husband. And life really becomes upside down for a lot of people in our family. And it's hard to it's hard to let that vagus nerve become very activated and, you know, feel a lot of anxiety. I'm trying really hard not to feel anxious or fearful or worried. And this conversation about the opportunities out there is helpful to me.
Yeah. Thank you, Donna, for sharing that.
Yeah.
Catherine, you had your hand up again? Did you?
I did. I was supposed to have cataract surgery this year.
You had
Because
what?
I'm having cataract surgery was supposed to happen this year. I'm having genuine vision problems.
Me too.
I'm a huge reader, and reading is not fun at the moment because my eyes don't work right. And it just, I mean, I'm aware there. It was all scheduled, and we actually, my family, my children, and I we were tuned into things very early on and knew we had to cancel. We canceled before anything was obvious in Colorado. We still canceled it because we knew. Because that's the kind of people we are. We're all clairvoyant. And not only that, but we're clairvoyant with each other. Yeah. Me and my 3 kids. But it seemed ironic that in the year 2020, when I was going to restore my 2020 vision, I'm here being asked to do a different vision. And I'm reminded of Michael Meade, who always talks about, as we age, maybe our eyes go cloudy because we are meant to see differently. We're meant to turn inward. We're meant to see in another way. We're meant to gather information, tune in a different way. And so I feel hung, but I also feel hung with this potential for tuning in a different way. And, you know,
that's why I said paradoxic. Everything's, there's a flip side to everything. And Catherine, I too have blurred vision as a part of my health problem. It's driving me crazy. On the other hand, I can think of as metaphor what it might represent.
Yes, yes.
But it changes life completely when you can't read books.
Yes.
I love that. A whole new way of seeing. So Mark, did you just hold up Jumping Mouse? Oh my God, you know I Mary Elizabeth. Did you meet Mary Elizabeth when she came to Billie's?
Yeah, I did. Yeah.
I was just thinking about her. And I saw that book and I was like, so what were you
And
going
it's
to
the just the last stage of Jumping Mouse journey is the sacrifice of his eyes to the eagle.
Oh, right. Yes.
Oh.
Yeah, so we want to say more about that for those who don't know the story, because that's beautiful.
Maybe someone else could do it better, but just that braveness of Jumping Mouse being one of many mice in a village, hearing a distant sound and finally trusting a pursuit of what that sound is, and willing to jump high enough to kind of see a distant sacred mountain and then undergo a journey of kind of a hero's journey with many different animal guides and allies, to get to an eventual final state of outward sightlessness that has great vision, and through an incredible journey of sacrifice in the spirit of Hanged Man, for sure.
That's good.
It's about inner trust, right?
Inner trust. No,
Isn't that
thank
the
you.
subtitle? And I found that book. It fell off the shelf, and I was still in Virginia. I just got a divorce. I didn't know what the hell I was going to do with my life, and I'm in this the one metaphysical bookstore, and it falls off the shelf in front of me. And it was the journey of inner trust, and that journey of inner trust has been my life's work since that point. And Mary Elizabeth is the author, and she lived there, and I got to know her, and Billie brought her out. But thank you for that, because the story is such a great story. There's so much that he goes through, and then he's willing. It's a willing sacrifice, right? Like he gives his eyes. And yeah, thanks, Mark. And I think we are seeing things in a whole new way in this upside down suspended experience.
Well, and I think we're at the point where we don't have a choice. I think that's the big part that we have to understand, is that we no longer have a choice now. So this either we grow or die. That's our choices here: transform or stay put. But this is going to be our challenge, is what ends up coming out of this that's going to be transformative and help not only us individually, but how do I help humanity from this point forward? What new things am I going to learn from this new perspective? So we're kind of at that point where we have to bring this to an arbitrary close. Anyone have any closing thoughts? Tom Vole raised his hand. Tom, did you want to say something?
Yeah, I just noticed in my reading that the Hangman, when reversed, means selfishness, the crowd, the body politic. And that sounds like where we are politically right now. Feels to me like, in some ways, the Hangman is upside down.
Yeah, very nice. Thank you. Anything else?
I feel the paradox within the language of COVID and this pandemic, of that paradox of distance and home.
Yeah.
And there's a little bit of that distance and home in the Hanged Man. There's some rooting and yet some distance from something. And so the social distancing and the stay at home are both here in the language we're using. It's such a paradox. It amplifies the phrase that I'm hearing a lot of separate and yet together. Just how much together, pandemic, all people in this, and yet this incredible separateness of our journeys within this allness.
You know, there was that concert that they had a few days ago. What was it, where Lady Gaga put that together? Do you remember the name of it?
I saw it.
Was it One World or something? One World.
One World. They put that together so quickly. I was very impressed with that. I mean, it was like suddenly it was like there it was, you know. So I mean, the fact that they could have a simulcast over 3 networks and all of those musicians came together that quickly, that's an example of how people have been, you know, creative people especially have been able to use their energies in ways that are just phenomenal. I mean, I was very impressed by that. There's also an incredible, I'll send this link to all of you too. There's a organization called Play for Change, and it starts out with Ringo Starr, and there's people that sing one song all over the world, and they have these, each of them have their individual tracks, but they put it together in a way that it feels like they're all together. Very beautiful. So those are the kind of, go ahead, Catherine.
Today, Maria Popova of Brain Pickings is having an all-day universe in verse. And you can look that up, Maria Popova, Brain Pickings, universe in verse. They're reading poems and singing songs, and it's a creative festival, which when I'm done here, I'm going to tune into some of it.
Wow. And see, when you said inverse, I'm thinking inverse like upside
Well,
down.
absolutely. There, she means to do the linguistic. She's a linguist.
Inverse. I love it. That's great. So so mark your calendars for May 16th, the same time, 1 o'clock Mountain Time to 2:30. We're going to explore the tower. So in the meantime, pay attention, because once you wake these archetypes up, they tend to find you. I mean, Jeremy used to warn me of that all the time. He used to go, once you rattle their cage, they'll come into your life. So pay attention to how the tower might show up for you. And don't think of it as like, oh no, you know, that happened. Think of it, oh, what broke free when that happened? You know, what changes in my life happens now? It's sort of like when death in a dream appears, we have to always remember it's a place of something wonderful wants to be born. Some old part of me wants to die so the new part can be born. Any other thoughts before we close up?
Well, I want to just, go ahead.
Lee and then Denise.
I just want to thank you for getting to be with each of your beautiful, expressive faces. I'm missing the human face so much, and yours are very beautiful for me. Thank you.
Too. Thanks, Lee.
So Denise, you had something you wanted to say?
Well, earlier you had asked if we had anything to share about the hangman having some story in your own life. And I realized as I'm sitting here and I'm listening, that one of the things that's been happening for me for the last, I don't know, I want to say 5 or 6 years, is a new perspective on a number of relationships that I've had in my life, relationships that have been around for 20, 30, 40 years, whatever. And there's a handful of these that I actually kind of feel like, you know, it's been turned upside down. This relationship that I thought was A was really, you know, R. Or a relationship that I thought was 1 is really 14. And it's just been really, it's been an interesting journey to try to figure out how to integrate the new perspective that I've had on a handful of very, very long time relationships. You know, people that have been very dear to me for a long time are dear in other kinds of ways, or the dearness that they first brought to my life, I don't feel the same thing about. And that's been quite challenging to try to be upside down and think about, you know, it's not that I don't care about these people or they haven't had great meaning, but I'm looking at them through different perspectives and different eyes. And there's a part of me, holy moly, you know, this has been hard enough. I'm not quite sure I'm ready for the tower.
Well, it goes along in our part of our journey.
That's right.
I was
Doesn't
thinking,
matter if I'm ready for it or not.
Yeah.
The date when we're meeting is the 16th, which will be a week after Boulder County opens up again, if we open up. And I think things aren't going to look the same. Of course, we're going to do it different. But so to me, it's already, the archetype's already showing up as, you know.
The tower is number 16 too. So even though we quickly scheduled that right before the call, it was like, oh, that just hit me. Like it wanted to be on that date.
Of course it is. Wow. Okay.
I write this stuff. So Mark, did you have something you were trying to say before?
No, I saw Andrew unmuted. I thought maybe he had something that was percolating.
I can't remember. Something was just interesting, but I just guess I really appreciate everybody and good to see you all. And so thank you.
We have a new person down here in the corner.
Nada.
Did I thought 4:30 was the time. Am I missing?
You just
you just finished?
It was 1 p.m. our time till 2:30.
So 3 till 4:30. Okay.
Yeah.
Another time.
I was wondering, like I looked at my list and I thought, oh, Nada, I just saw her the other day. I was hoping you would join. Well, we did record as before, so you'll get a chance to listen to watch the
Okay, great. Thank you.
So thank you all for providing the media releases. I started to say medical release. Whoops. No,
I've had plenty of those.
I'm not looking for you. No, I'm so glad that all of you agreed to the media release. It really helps Patti and I to share these with other people and be able to. I posted on my website. There's a special page that I put together called Zoom Gatherings. So if you've missed some of the prior ones, take a look. They're all the same, an hour and a half. And the first one's called Paradox of Pandemic. The second one was about the journey of the Fool. And now, as you know, we've done this Hangman, next time the Tower. Also, I'll send you a link to a podcast that I did recently that I think helps to talk about what we're also going through right now and viewing what we're going through as a waking dream, a waking nightmare. And as many of you know, I have Zoom groups that meet. One meets on evenings on two Tuesdays a month, and another one meets on afternoons 2 Thursdays a month. And I advertise those often on Facebook. But you can always go to my website, wakeuptoyourdreams.com. And Patti, you want to talk about your class?
Thank you, Billie.
Yeah, I've got a course
Thank
called
you.
Go In, Not Out, Deepening Parts of Yourself in the COVID-19 Pandemic. It's free. You can go to my website, pattiashley.com, and just join us. I do a Facebook Live on Friday, so I'm wrapping up this week and maybe next week with the discussions. But the website has, if you go to my website, click on the link, there's videos and PowerPoints and discussions all about the neurobiology of going inward and being upside down, sort of, I guess, in a sense. So I'd love for you to join. Elizabeth was in the live. Thanks for being there. And Christine and Billie have been in some of them. Thanks.
Loved seeing all of you.
You too, Donna. So glad you're recovering and you're well.
I'm well, but slowly.
And
well, not there yet.
And you're
I'm upside down.
Oh, well, Donna, yeah, it's so good to see your face. I've been talking to you by text this whole time. You've been in the hospital. So
I know.
See your face.
But this is quick. This is just a few days. I probably would be in bed feeling sorry for myself. So Donna, you're just awesome. You just get up and you keep
This is
going.
my first event. Mostly I've been slouching around in pajamas or in bed feeling sorry for myself.
Yeah. So we're so glad you're here. Thank you all for joining us. And thanks, Billie, again for doing this. It's awesome.
Thank you. Thank you.
Oh, it was great.
Bye, everyone.
Bye and bye.
We'll do a namaste to end. Let's do this is going to replace shaking hands. So we have to get used to doing
Oh, good idea.
I mean, then why do you think so many cultures do this? Is because they already knew that they want to keep touching and transmitting. So I love this short Mayan prayer. That's how I like to close all my dream groups. And I feel very emotional right now. I'm not sure why. Maybe. Okay, take a breath. All right. Something is vibrating somewhere. I think it's in Andrew. Okay. All right. Long life.
Long life.
Honey in the heart.
Honey in the heart.
You know the rest. No evil.
No evil.
13 thank yous.
13 thank yous.
Sorry. That just came out of nowhere.
Thank you for your tears, Billie.
Yeah, I think you're welcome. I have plenty of them.
You're welcome. They're welcome here.
Virtual hug, Billie.
It just hit me all of a sudden. I don't know where it came from. It was just all the energy of everything right now. But anyway, long life to everybody. Take good
Thank
care.
you.
The good release.
Right. Yeah, I know it's been like such a road. All right. So I love you all. Thank you so much.
Back, Billie.
Thank you.
Thank
Patti,
you.
all of you.
Love all of you.
Thanks, everybody.
Good night.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
you.
See you next